I'd like to thank the grace of heaven, the virtues of the masters, and the compassion and mercy of the grand predecessors, seniors, transmitters, lecturers, temple masters, everyone for giving me this opportunity today to talk about today's topic, which is chapter 59 of the Tao Te Ching. Okay, here's the outline. Sorry, the overview. Okay, so chapter 59 is called the Longevity chapter. Okay, it's divided into three sections. The first section, it's the thesis. That's the key. Okay, well, the thesis. Okay, the proposition, and then the second section, which is lines or phrases 3 through 8. Okay, that's the analysis, and then lines 9 through 10, or phrases 9 to 10, is the synthesis and the conclusion, and this ties back to the first two phrases. Okay, all right, so there it is. Okay, it's not that long of a chapter. It's shorter than the previous ones. I think it's a chapter in the 50s. It's probably one of the shorter chapters anyway. Okay, uh, let's go to the outline. I have the outline here someplace. Let's go to the outline. Okay, here it is. All right. Okay, let's start. The first sentence or the first section is just one. It's in governing people and serving heaven, there's nothing like conservation. Okay, now you have to really know the you have to know the meaning, okay, of this last word. Okay, that's very important. All right, now let's just take the first phrase first. Okay, there are many levels of meaning. Well, as hopefully you would know by now that in the Tao Te Ching. All right. Okay, so at the very least, there are three broad category levels. Okay, first level is the at the kingdom level. Okay, so the ruling the people of a kingdom and below heaven. Okay, uh, it means serving the heaven. That means when you are ruling a country, in this case, okay, in this level, you are still below heaven. So therefore, you're under heaven. That's what they mean by serving heaven. Okay, so this is reflected in the comparison. The earthly emperor, for example, the Huangdi. That means this means sovereign emperor. Literally, that's what it means. Okay, but anyway, it just means the earthly ruler. Now that corresponds, or say corresponds. Yeah, you can say corresponds to the Jade Emperor, which is the now in this is more Chinese. Okay, I mean, Buddhism has their own too, Hinduism has their own. It's similar, it's parallel. The Jade Emperor is the celestial realm. Okay, now there are different levels in celestial realm. Yes, that's true, but this is the supreme, the supreme level of the celestial realm. So I mean, it covers all realms. So if you look at the 10, what's got the 十法界, the 10 Dharma realms of Buddhism, in the realm of desire, the higher levels, there are the celestial realms. Okay, different levels and all that. So I think they have, I don't know, 33, quite a few. I mean, in Buddhism, they're very very specific detail. But anyway, in Asia, in Chinese, at least in Chinese, you can say mythology or whatever, the celestial realm, I don't know if they divide up the as detail level as in the Buddhism, but there is an emperor that's in charge of the celestial realm. So that means you can say spiritual realm, or what. Okay, it's just not, it's outside of our physical dimensions. Okay, so that's the celestial that reflects the earthly empire. So what I'm saying is, just like in the spiritual realm or the celestial realm, okay, they have a, like say, a celestial kingdom, okay, or ruler. So the reflection of that on that level to the earthly level, to the physical level, we also have an earthly emperor. Okay, so it's, you know, both. Okay, so that's what I'm saying. It's a mutual reflection. Okay, that's one level. Now another is that because the Tao underlines or it's the source of everything, so all levels of existence therefore reflect one another. Okay, thus our world is a lower level reflection of heaven. Okay, of heaven, or say the celestial realm. Or okay, so that's that means. Okay, uh, or the correspondent. That's the now. So okay, so that's the first level talking about this. I guess you know it's physical, obviously, but it's, you know, on the kingdom level we call it. Now the next level, it's physical also, but it's talking about the individual now, the personal level. So that means managing personal relationships and serving all those below heaven, because we're also below heaven, right? You know, just like the physical kingdom or earthly kingdom is below the celestial kingdoms or celestial heaven. It's the same thing with the humans. Okay. Okay. So now it does not mean, though, I'm talking about personal level now, that you are the absolute ruler over the people in your life. Rather, it is about you being the main character in the story of your life. You know, you're the protagonist in your own story of your life, of your existence. Okay, so that's what it means by that. Okay, it doesn't mean that you're the ruler of people in your life. No, it doesn't mean that. All right. So then what's 4天? That means, okay, that's this. All right. This, in this case, this 四 mean it's a verb. It's not a noun. Okay, it's a verb. Okay, it means to serve. Okay, it could be a fair. That those are nouns, but the verb is to serve. Okay, so the serving heaven. What is serving heaven? We need to know the heavenly principles or the reasons. That's tenly. You know, we say heavenly, which can be interpreted as representing the nature of the gods, divine justice, the course of nature, etc. I mean, there are many, once again, different nuances, different levels, okay, of meaning. All right. Okay. Or you can say heavenly principles. Okay. So when there's something that goes contrary to heavenly reasons or principles, then that's called injustice. Okay. Because, all right. Okay. All right, so that's the. We'll look into more details in at the end of this section, but let's go to section. I mean, sorry, the second half of this sentence. That means there is nothing like conservation, and that's a important word here. This word, okay. Now, there's a modern meaning. Now, remember, this is in the ancient context, but the modern context of meaning, it literally means stingy or miserly, you know, stingy, which is, it's a negative. That's not a, you know, it's an adjective that in modern use, you know, describes somebody who's stingy, you know, miserly, everything. But in the ancient usage during Lao Tzu's time, it means not wasteful, frugal, thrifty. Okay. So it means to conserve. You know, you can. So the basic meaning is to not be wasteful, which means conservation of. Now, not wasteful of anything. It's very general, right? It means conservation of time, energy, mind, attention, focus, spirituality. You know, all that. Okay. So, so this is the very basic level. All right. So all these resources, you know, all these physical resources are finite in the world, right? Just like all things in the world are finite. So just like our time in this world is finite. So our energy, our time, our mind, our attention, our focus, it's all finite. All right. Spirituality too. Okay. We're not talking about the soul. It means, you know, in the realm of spirituality, you know, our focus on spirituality or our time spent on spirituality and spirituality. Okay. So the additional meaning is that to conserve is to recognize that resources are finite, right? That makes sense. Okay, so to conserve these resources is to recognize that we must use these resources wisely. because they're finite. All right, so that's also what it means. Okay, now there's a reason why we translate it as conservation, which we will tie back, but there's a deeper meaning which we'll get to. But let's get to the deeper level meaning of what serving heaven means. Okay, so serving heaven means living your life according to the heavenly Tao. That's what it means. Okay, it doesn't mean that. Yes, the basic meaning is, yeah, we are below heaven, of course, because we're on the earthly plane as opposed to the celestial realm or plane. Okay, so we're below. That's fine. That's basic. But it also means to serve heaven, right? Okay, which in turn, or serve the Tao, to follow the Tao, basically, to live our lives according to the Tao, or which means two things. Okay, one is to follow one's conscience. Heavenly principles are the reflection of human conscience. So you are letting your highest self, that's your self nature, your true nature, your Buddha nature, dictate, okay, or be the master, okay, to decide for you what is right and wrong, what you should do or not do. So that's to follow one's conscience or to follow one's Buddha nature. So that means serving heaven. That's what it means. Okay. The second is it's a little bit more narrow. Okay, more narrow and more tangible. It just means to follow your reasoning. Okay, so because heaven has given us, endowed us with reasoning faculties, okay, ability to think, right? And an independent mind that allows you to contemplate, figure things out, and conduct yourself in accordance with reason. That's a reflection also of heavenly principles. All right, so that two levels, okay. All right, third is to follow virtue. Follow that which is virtuous. So if you see something that is unjust, then you must act according to your conscience, okay? And then fourth is to follow nature, okay? All right. So in living our lives, you have to follow the natural rhythm of nature. For example, there's a time for activity, work, study, play, etc. And also a time for inactivity, reflection, rest, sleep, etc. So this is the yin and yang, right? That's the nature. Yes, yin and yang, right? Yin and yang cycles, if you will, okay? Or division. So these are the four, right? So the first two is definitely internal. This is both, you can say. Well, virtue is actually an expression, all right, of what your internal conscience is, right? So that's external, and then this is also external. Okay, so all of these four items are to follow the heavenly principles and thus serving heaven. That's what it means. Okay, now there's a deeper meaning of what not being wasteful means. Okay, now we say it's the conservation. The conservation is to know where to rest or where to stop. That's what it means. Okay, the conservation at the highest level. Okay, yeah, it's not on the tangible level, which, yeah, you should conserve our resources. Yeah, that's fine. That's true. Okay, on a kingdom level, yeah, when you're ruling a kingdom, you should not be wasteful, right? You should conserve, right? And then when you are interacting yourself or living your life in this, the ruler of your own life, your own kingdom, you should not be wasteful. That's very basic. That's not wrong. But there's a higher level, and that's at the individual level, internally, you have to conserve. And what is to conserve? Is to know where you're going to rest or where you're going to abide in. Okay, 知止, that means to be at one. Okay, at the Tao. That's similar to in Buddhism, right? We call, that's the state of dhyana, samadhi. Okay, that's the second of the three non-outflow studies, aka three pillars. We'll talk about that a little bit more. Okay, but that's the higher level. Okay, all right. So that's what it means to conserve. It's to be at that state. Okay, to be at rest or abide or be at one with the Tao. Okay, now the implication is now on the kingdom level, it's the king to the subjects, right? That's correspond, the king to the subjects. Okay. Now, at the personal level, it means you and the people in your life. Okay. Now, whether you're at the king or at the individual, to serve heaven is to live, to act in accordance with the heavenly principles, the Tao. Okay. So, at a personal level, it also means that we live our lives in accordance with Tao. Okay. So, we must realize that our time in this world is limited and the resources are finite. So we must utilize our time wisely, efficiently, effectively. Okay. So now in a lot of the classical commentaries on this first line, a lot of the authors point out to the conservation is like analogous to that of a farmer. All right, so let's go to Appendix A. Oops, where am I? Okay, Appendix A, here's the analogy, okay? So on first column, we have analogy, and then in the second column is, our real life, our everyday life. So the analogy is that conservation is like a farmer, and the farmer represents you and me, okay, just everybody. And what does the farmer grow? Well, what does it do? He grows crops or produces crops. So we humans, all of us, have our different goals in life, right? So that's the correspondence. Now, what does the in order to make sure that the crops, farmer can harvest the crops, he has to sort of like manage, right? Maintain the fields to make sure that there are no weeds. That is, the weeds take away resources from the crops. He's not harvesting weeds, he's harvesting crops, right? So the weeds to the farmer, and that corresponds to what? Distractions of this colorful material world for everybody else in life, okay? So the weeds represents distractions. So we have, the farmer has to what? Get rid of the weeds, right? So we too have to get rid of our distractions, right? Now, what are the resources that the farmer uses to grow his crop? He uses water, fertilizer, nutrients. These are nutrients, okay? So, but these are resources, and these are limited too. So, that corresponds to us in everyday life, all types of resources, be it monetary, time-wise, space-wise, all that, right? Material, non-material, whatever, right? We're limited, right? Also, we have limited resources, so we have to use them wisely. Just like a farmer uses water and fertilizer wisely, right, to grow his crop. Now, the farmer also has to clear out the weeds, and that's analogous or corresponds to everybody in real life, is to remove distractions. That's to remove the causes of inefficiency, waste, etc., right? And then once that's done, once the farmer has put in his water, nutrients, the inputs, the limited resources, and then also cleared out the weeds, which are weeds are things that take away or that prevents the crops from growing, right? Because it takes away the water nutrients that the crop needs, right? So you have to clear out the weeds. So once that's done, the farmer lets the crop grow naturally. The sun makes sure that there's, as long as there's sun, right? There's enough rain, water, etc. Okay, so that's corresponds to all of us moving naturally on the path once we have used our resources wisely, material, non-material, and remove all distractions. So, more specific example would be, as Tao cultivators, we have to remove distractions, which at the minimum, we have to remove the 3 poisons, right, etc. The 5 dull vices and the 5 king views, same thing, right? We have to remove all those because those hinder us or are obstacles for us on our spiritual journey. So if we remove it and we spend our time wisely, right, use our resources wisely or effectively, then we can move naturally on the path. All right. So that's the analogy. Okay. So let's go back to okay. Okay. Where are we? Okay, right here, right? Okay. So now that's the key point is this. On a personal level, the way we interact with people, that's the governing people me, and living our lives according to the Tao, that's the serving heaven. They are reflections of being at rest or at one with the Tao. That's the conservation part, okay? That's the internal. That's okay, that's the personal. Now, externally, okay, when we want to conserve our resources, we use them efficiently and effectively because the resources are finite and can be depleted. So when one day is wasted, that day will never come back. So to see how conservation is related to life, there's a story, interesting, of Huang Di, also known as the Yellow Emperor and the Horse Shepherd Boy. Okay, comes from Zhuangzi. Okay, all right. So let's go here. All right. Let's see. I have the story. Let me go through it very quickly. It shouldn't take that long. Okay, it's only take a few minutes. All right. I gotta flip to that page here. Okay, here. All right. So Huang Di is the legendary Yellow Emperor. All right. Now he had heard of a sage by the name of Da Wei, which was known for uncommon insights or wisdom. So he decided to seek the advice of the sage. So he and his 6 ministers embarked for the place is called Juqi Mountain. That's where supposedly Da Wei lived. Okay, so that's what the story is. Okay, at the Zuji. Yeah, let me see. It's pronounced Zu Ju San. Okay, Juji San. Okay, Jutes. Okay, whatever. Okay, that's the doesn't matter. Okay, so when the king, the Yellow Emperor and his 6 ministers, near their destination, they found themselves lost in the wilderness because they'd never been there before. Okay, so none of them knew much about the area, so they needed to ask someone for directions. So they looked around but could not find anyone. Just so happens that Huang Di saw a young boy riding a horse and walking, tending to his horse not too far away. So he called out to the boy and asked, "We are heading for the Juqi Mountain. Would you happen to know where to go?" Okay. And the boy replied with a nod, "Sure." Now, the boy's very short answer and quite confident answer sort of, aroused the interest of Huang Di. And so Huang Di decided to, ask further, said, what about this great sage Da Wei? Would you happen to know where he lives? Then the boy gave another nod and said, "Sure." So the Huang Di was thinking, wow, what an unusual boy. He seems so self-assured, self-confident, like a know-it-all. Was there something he did not know? So Huang Di decided to test him and half in jest, smiled. "I suppose next you will say you know how to rule the empire, right?" So the king, Huang Di was just, asking in jest. Then the boy replied, "Ruling the empire is just like taking care of a horse. Why make it more complicated than that? I'm just a boy who likes to wander around alone. I had a headache today and felt dizzy. So an elder told me that it would help to be out here in the wilderness. I'm feeling much better now, so I can continue to be on my way. Governing people is similar to this, but it is not my job, so I should not presume to have an opinion." Now Huang Di would say, "True, it is not your job. But before you go, what do you mean by ruling the empire being like taking care of a horse. Now, the boy did not respond right away. Okay, so Huang Di asked again. So after a thoughtful pause, the boy said, "What is so different about the two activities? When taking care of a horse, what one must do is remove everything that is harmful to the horse in order to bring out the horse's own natural vitality. So the way to rule the empire is similar." Now, so Huangdi was sort of stunned by the simplicity of the boy's answer, right? So it sounds so simplistic, so simple, almost childlike, right? So somehow what the boy said was exactly what Huangdi needed to hear. So he bowed 3 times in gratitude to the boy and said, "You are truly a teacher of the heavenly Tao." So when Huangdi turned and rejoined his ministers. So one of his ministers asked, "Your Majesty, should we continue our search for, for the Juji Mountains, for the Da Wei sage?" And Huangdi replied, "No," to everyone's surprise. He smiled and said, "I have the advice I need. Let's head back to the palace." End of story. Okay, so what does that mean? So what is this whole story? So the story it's really not about the Yellow Emperor, but it's a metaphor for life. Now, remember, this is Zhuangzi using this story, right, to illustrate, an idea, a point. All right. Now, who does Huangdi? Who's Huang? I mean, yes, he's an emperor. He was an emperor. As a matter of fact, he was one of the what do you call that? The Tao patriarchs, our patriarch in the Green period. But anyway, Huangdi represents us. He's a metaphor. Zhuangzi was using Huangdi as a metaphor to represent us. And the search for the sage, Da Gui, is our search for answers or the meaning of or purpose of life. Okay, so that's Zhuangzi's his method, his idea. So what Zhuangzi is saying is that the way to live is to simplify and reduce negative elements or all those things that hinder us or obstructs us on our journey, on our path of cultivation, etc. Right? So he wasn't talking about actually ruling an empire. Okay, so that's what I was saying. Now, so what are the negative elements? For example, here's the A's. That's the addictions, attachments. You can say, well, I wouldn't say anger in here, but maybe, yeah, okay. So it could be material or non-material attachments. Then the C's are the complaints, criticisms, clutter, complexity, etc. All right, mental material. And then this inertia or indecisiveness, wishy-washy, sitting on the fence, overthinking things or overanalyzing things, so you get paralysis by analysis, etc. All that. Okay. So what the additional insight that Zhuangzi was talking about is called conservation. It means to, not to necessarily to conserve. It just means to reduce clutter, do all that, to simplify things. All right. To know where to stop. That means ultimately, at the highest level, means to what? Ultimately reside or abide with the Tao. Okay, so that's the point of the story. Okay, so let's go back. We're going to refer back to this a little bit later. Okay. All right. Okay. So, all right. So let's go to the section 2. All right. Oh, God, half an hour. Okay. Only this conservation is called submitting or gathering early. Submitting or gathering early is called emphasis on or repeated or serious accumulation of virtues. Okay, there are a couple ways of translating these two terms, but which I will talk about right here. Okay, okay, okay. This, okay, 造福. Okay, fu means to obey, to accede to surrender, to defer. Okay, to yield, to submit, to give up. All right, it means that. It also means close, but that's a noun. This is a verb. Okay, so it means to submit early. Okay, or to give in early. You can say to yield early. Okay, to keep. All right. So the basic meaning is only with this conservation is to give up struggle and strive as soon as possible. Okay, so that's very basic level. That means you don't continue to what? Struggle, to strive, to contend, etc. Okay, so another meaning is that in life, this means stop going against the Tao or being contrary to the Tao. Okay, that's the broader level. All right, so more specific is to disengage from contention, right? Debates, right? Discord, right? Eliminate contentions, walk the broad plane down, and let go of the side paths. Okay, now sages understand, right, that people procrastinate, especially regarding the Tao. They have a lot of excuses or reasons, family, school, work, etc., etc. But Lao Tzu is reminding us that our time is limited, right? Remember, our resources are all limited, right? So we have to be mindful of that, right? So let's go to Appendix C to see what we need to be reminded of, and also Appendix D to apply the wisdom to submit early, okay, or to follow the Tao. All right. Okay. So let's go to C. Okay. So apply the wisdom to conserve. All right. That's okay. So there's the unwise and the wise. Okay. The difference is this: the unwise will say, "Hey, I still have time. Yeah, the day is young. I'm still very young. I won't. I don't need to. You know, submit to the Tao or to follow the Tao yet. And I'll wait till I retire. I wait till, you know, I'm 60 or whatever, and then I can work on that. Now, whereas the wise would say, they're clear on the time that's available versus what you have to do, right? Okay, so that's the wise, and the unwise would procrastinate, waste time. Believe me, I mean, I understand this. I mean, I procrastinated so many times before. All right, so we waste time. Okay, whereas the wise will work, pieces at a time. Incrementally. The idea is that it's a gradual progress. You're not going to reach your destination within one day, right? Okay, so you divide up the tasks that needs to be done and work on them individually, and that's easier, right? Okay, so that's what the wise would do. Whereas the unwise, when they realize, when they're after retirement, or maybe they're getting sick, old, whatever, they become desperate at the 11th hour. Okay, they decide, oh, now's when I should concentrate on the Tao, or whatever, or search on. Well, whereas the wise have no such desperation because they're still on track. They've been practicing, they've been following their path since the beginning, early, right? Submit early, right? And so therefore they can do it in a relaxed, manner, that's the, what to call that? I would say the Zhuangzi would say, called uh, wandering carefree. Okay, the key is, if you know your destination, if you know the goal, and if you've been cultivating, you know, properly over time, accumulating, virtues, etc., then yes, you can, that journey can become relaxed, leisurely. Okay, there's no notion of desperation, of rushing. Okay, so that's the carefree, okay, aspect of it. Then last, the unwise, they're on their deathbed or whatever, their last breaths, the time runs out. Whereas the wise would reach their destination or their goal on time, no rush, no worries, very, very relaxed. Okay, so that's the idea of conservation. That means to what? To know to where to reside, to know to be with the Tao, okay, or to follow the Tao, okay. it's to submit early. Okay, you can say that. Now, how do we apply the wisdom to submit early? Okay, there's a difference between the unwise and the wise. Okay, now the unwise will still say, I'm still looking, I'm still searching, I haven't decided yet, I'm still wishy-washy, I'm still searching, whatever. Whereas the wise is saying, you know what? Our paths have already been blazed by previous ancient wise sages. So you can leverage your actions. I mean, or leverage, whatever you need to do according to these ancient sages, the wisdom that they had, right? Okay. So the unwise will say, oh, I'm not happy with this. I'll try another one. And then I'm not happy with that later. I'll try another, whatever, one to the other. Okay. Whereas the wise would get started on the path as soon as possible. Once they, okay, so this is analogous or similar to, remember, chapter 41, right? What does chapter 41 say, right? 41 is about what? Upon hearing the Tao, okay? Hearing the Tao, there is the what? Higher level people, when they hear the Tao, they diligently practice. Lower level people hear the Tao, they laugh loudly at it. They say, I don't believe it. I'm going to try something else. I think it's, I'll do something else, instead. I'll try, right? Okay, so it's similar to that. Then finally, at the wise, after searching so many places, so many things, so many teachings, whatever, I don't know, different things, different techniques, I don't know, whatever, they still feel lost because they haven't really devoted or committed completely to any one thing, right? Whereas the wise, they know their destination. They move forward with definite purpose. Okay? All right. So that's what difference is between the wise and the unwise. Okay? All right. Let's go there. All right. Okay. So the deeper meaning, understanding of submitting early means to submit to, follow, obey. Now, this is more specific, moral discipline. That is the self-discipline of one's minds and action. Okay, one's mind and actions. Okay, that's what it means. I mean, yeah, follow the Tao is the general case, right? To submit early, but it means specifically the moral discipline. Okay, all right. Now, once, okay, we submitted early, that is to more to the second half of this section, which is submitting or gathering early, is called the emphasis on accumulation of virtue, or on serious accumulation of virtue. Okay, so what the basic meaning of that phrase means, when we submit early, that is to follow or obey the moral discipline, is the accumulation of virtues. Okay, yes, following the Tao in general, yes, it's also accumulation of virtues, but this is more specific. Okay, is to how do you accumulate the virtue? Is to what? Follow your moral discipline. Okay, to submit to the moral discipline. So there is a right and wrong. All right, that's the moral aspect, the morality, the moral. So accumulation of virtues can be, example, okay, such as contemplation, reflection about life, reading sutras, that increases the understanding of the Tao, or the real life application, which is the daily practice of what we learned about the Tao, etc., etc. Okay, these are all accumulation of virtue. Okay, just to different degrees, different levels. Okay, now there are different forms of virtue too. All right, now one called it prosperity, and the other is called merit. Now, prosperity just means that something that's more tangible. Okay, whereas merit is a little bit more intangible. Okay, so let's go to that. So what is the virtue of prosperity and virtue of merit? Okay. Now, virtue of prosperity is what we would call, in Buddhism, would call karmic rewards. Okay, would be called karmic reward. I mean, it's good reward. That's why it's a reward. It's good karma. Okay, so that's whereas virtue of merit is more intangible. Okay, so what's the difference? the karmic rewards or the virtue of prosperity is external, whereas the virtuous or the virtue of merit is internal. Right? So one is deals the external is the material world, which is tangible. The other one is spirituality, that's intangible. Right? Now, the virtue of prosperity or karmic rewards ultimately are illusory or false because all things, phenomena, are always changing. They're impermanent, they're transient, right? They're temporary. Whereas ultimately, right, the virtue of merit is real. It's ultimate because it's changeless. It's comes from our changeless self nature, true nature, Buddha. All right, okay, all right, or it's connected to that. Okay, it's actually a manifestation that, or okay, anyway, doesn't. All right, so the virtue of prosperity or karmic reward is example is to see the suffering of others. So that's based on some kind of external input, sensory input. Whereas the virtue of merit is to see the truth of the self nature, our Buddha nature. Realize that, oh, our Buddha nature is the essence, and that's the ultimate reality. Okay. Whereas, yes, we see the suffering of others or whatever, but that's all external. That's all based on input. Okay. So, so the virtue of prosperity or karmic rewards that you would it comes about by giving to charity, right? That means you're attached to the material world. Whereas because you see, right, you see the suffering of others, so you say to yourself, oh, I want to help them, right? I mean that's not wrong. So you give to charity, you do good things, etc., etc. So I mean, so it's not wrong, it's not bad. But because it's based on external things, so therefore the reward is still karmic reward, still the virtual prospect, which is external or material. Whereas when you see the truth of the self nature, of your Buddha nature, you will naturally, that's why I say it manifests from your Buddha nature, the natural compassion. Okay, so that's non-attached. That's the wu wei part. It's just natural. It's a natural reflection of your Buddha nature that you manifest or express natural compassion without saying, "Oh, I express natural compassion because I see the suffering of others." No, 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 no. It's the other way around. It's the other way around. Okay. So it's not because you saw suffering of others that then you feel compassion. No, that's dependent. That's dependent. You are compassionate because you saw the suffering of others. Right? It's dependent on the suffering of others or seeing the suffering of others. No, that's not the wu wei. That's not, so that's why it's not called the highest virtue. Okay. The highest virtue is that compassion or mercy, etc., manifests naturally, automatically, spontaneously, unconditionally from your Buddha nature. Okay. That's the highest level. All right. Okay. So the virtual prosperity is also support religious practice. Yeah. You know, you give what they call donations, et cetera, right? It's not wrong. It's not bad, but this is still linked to the physical side. All right. Okay. Whereas the virtue of merit is focused on self-cultivation, which is internal focus. One's external, one's internal. Okay. All right. And then your valuable contribution, or we say, the reward, right? Karmic reward is still limited. And also what you contribute, if it's conditioned based on the external material world, the tangible thing, it's still limited. Whereas if it's internal, right, it's based on your Buddha nature, then it's priceless, it's limitless. Okay, so that's the difference. I mean, this is similar to the difference between what we call virtuous merit versus what we call karmic merit or karmic rewards, right? Okay, so this is oops, sorry. Okay. Okay. All right. So that's the parallel. All right. Okay. Okay. All right. Okay. Now, further understanding is that both forms of virtues are required though. So I'm not saying one is, one is inferior to the one is more limited. That's a better way. I don't want to say inferior, but because it sounds, it's kind of extreme, kind of harsh. But it's just that one is limited, the other one is not limited. Okay. So, but you still need both because why? Because we live in this material world. So you still have to do things that's connected to the material world, right? You still have to do things that's connected to that, right? So unfortunately, you need both. Okay, you need to do both virtues of merit, which is internal, and then the virtues of prosperity, which is external. All right. But the emphasis though is on the gradual accumulation of limitless virtue over time versus the limited. Okay, so you still want to accumulate more limitless virtues, okay, than the limited virtues. Okay, so that's what it is. Okay, so deep understand. Another way of saying accumulating the virtues, okay, is that to submit early is to let our body accumulate or gather together our vitality, energy, and spirit. Now, this is what the philosophical Taoism, focuses on, which is the vitality, energy, and spirit. So that means to submit early means to gather together, to accumulate these three components, the vitality, energy, and spirit. So that's now you want to merge them. That's ultimately that's the end. You don't want them separated. Okay. You want to merge the vitality, energy, and spirit. So that what that means is that means allows us to be at one with the Tao. So that's similar to what Buddhism would say, right? Is that the state of you can say ultimate tranquility or the highest tranquility or dhyana, concentration, stillness, the stillness of the mind. Okay, so that's the dhyana samadhi. Okay, so so in the philosophical Taoism, the merging of the vitality, energy, spirit means not to deplete them by not releasing them outwardly. We don't focus outwardly. The idea is to bring it back, focus internally, reflect, self-reflect. That's the idea. So that's now in Buddhism, that's called non-outflow. Okay, yeah, that's also called non-outflow. All right, so there's the connection between the Taoism and the Buddhism right there. Okay, now the higher level understanding of submitting early is to have moral discipline of the mind. Remember, that's the more specific, right? And more narrow versus, just to follow the Tao. And in one's mind and actions. So that's similar to the first of the three non-outflow studies, right? Which is moral discipline. You get it? Okay. Now, we also have concentration, and then we also have wisdom too. But, all right? Okay, so the implication is the best time to cultivate Tao, the best time to start to cultivate Tao is past. It's many, many years ago. So the second best time to start is right now. So to start Tao cultivation as quickly as possible is to submit early. Okay, so that's the broader interpretation. Now, to conserve is to know to rest at or stop at or being at one with the Tao. That's similar, or you can say equivalent to the Buddhist account of the dhyana or samadhi. Okay, chanting. That's the is it the fifth parameter? Is that the fourth or fifth? Anyway, it doesn't matter. So this is called following or obeying the moral discipline of the self nature. That's to submit early, which means to collect and gather together our body and mind in order to be able to have moral discipline, whereby having the moral discipline, one is able to accumulate serious virtues. It's the virtuous merit, okay, or the limitless virtues, which is to emphasize the gradual accumulation of virtuous merits that manifest from our true Buddha nature, okay, or from true nature, okay. All right, then the second half of the section 2, right, is or the middle, the next two is accumulating virtues repeatedly or seriously means there is nothing one cannot overcome. When there's nothing one cannot overcome, it means one's limits are unknown. Okay, so it just means that with the repeated accumulation of virtues, which is based on two components, right? One is external of prosperity and one's internal of merit. There's nothing one cannot overcome. That's what the basic meaning is. Okay, the phrase. Another one is saying is with the serious accumulations, any obstacle can be surmounted. That's another way of saying. Okay, now the deep accumulation of virtues is a very powerful. It's very powerful. So think of this image, just like the fragile, flexible plant. I would say sapling. Maybe that's a better word. Sapling. That's so small, which grows gradually from a tiny seed that can even crack the hard surface of a concrete. So for comparison between the individual group and group level of virtue, let's go to Appendix F. Okay, here it is. So the emphasis is on accumulating virtues, okay? All right, so there are two, right? The two types, right? Then it's on the individual level and on a group level. So individual level, you do gradually, right? Baby steps, small steps. It's gradual progress and dedicated study of the Tao, leading to greater understanding, insight, wisdom, and eventually enlightenment, right? That's the gradual step, right? One at a time. At the group level, people become aware of a cultivator's spiritual attainment. So they recognize that person's virtuous nature, okay? So when you do this individually, so when you individually cultivate, over time, people will become aware and they'll recognize it. Okay, so you don't have to tell people about it. So much of this process on the individual side is internal, and therefore unseen and unnoticed by most. Okay, now over time, at the group level, the people will see that and they'll go and ask them questions. All right, other about that. Okay, they'll seek them out. Then one day it happens. Others will take notice, like the cracks in the concrete drawing attention, right? Well, that little plant from a seed that can break through the concrete, all right? So same thing. So then the group will then center around this spiritual leader, quote unquote, and then everybody will work toward the same goal. Okay, so that's the dynamic between on an individual and a group of accumulating virtue. Okay, all right, of people accumulating virtue. Okay, right. Okay. So the further understanding is this: as long as we have deep accumulation of virtues, all phenomenal affairs and matters will be surmounted. Okay, so that's important to remember. So now, then the last phrase is what? When there is nothing one cannot overcome, it means one's limits are unknown. So it just means with the power of gradual accumulation of serious virtues, there's nothing you cannot overcome. All right. Or another way of saying is when you can overcome anything, your limits are unknown. So with the power of gradual accumulation of virtues, you cannot know how deep this power is. But due to the gradual nature of this, your power is imperceptible or unnoticed by others. Okay, so the limits of this power of accumulation of virtues is unknown. You can become unlimited individual. All right. So with gradual accumulation of serious virtues, everything will be influenced by the virtues. It's mainly the internal, okay, virtues. That's why it's called serious. Okay. Okay. Everything will not be in conflict or be in opposition. Everything will be subdued or vanquished. When you've mastered the accumulative virtues, you are unlimited. All right. So that's like being a Buddha. Okay. I mean, at the highest level, Buddha, sage. Okay. All right. So these two lines basically describe a particular moment in cultivation. It is really about gradual accumulation, not inherent talent. Okay. That's very important. So everyone has start out the same. Okay. It's not based on inherent talent. Okay. So everyone has gifts that are still untapped. The Tao can help you uncover these gifts and teach you how to tap into this gift through gradual accumulation. So it is when you see the power of gradual accumulation for yourself that you realize you can use it for anything. You not only become great in your cultivation virtues, but also as a virtuoso in a particular skill. All right. Okay. Let's go to the last phrases of the second section, which is one's limits being unknown, one can possess sovereignty. With this mother principle of power, one can be everlasting. Oh, what does this mean? This is often, this section gets very mistranslated or misinterpreted. Okay, so what means is that this is we're looking at the second phrase right here. One can possess sovereignty. What does that mean? Okay, sovereignty. Literally, that means a country, but it also means sovereign. Okay, that's what this means. Country, kingdom. Okay, so in order to possess a kingdom, then you have sovereignty, you have power, okay, over the country in this case, right? Okay, so the basic meaning is to possess a country means sovereignty. Okay, that's external. I mean, that's the kingdom level or sovereign. At the personal level, it just means to possess sovereignty means having the power or spiritual independence to make decisions about your own destiny. Okay, that's personal. So in ancient times, to possess sovereignty means a wise ruler who understood the importance of accumulating virtues and thus deserves to have a kingdom to rule. Okay. Now, in modern times, someone who accumulates virtues becomes unstoppable and unlimited, thus become in command of your life or your destiny. Okay, so that's the personal level. Now, further understanding is that being unlimited and in control of one's life is to have true spiritual sovereignty. So I'm now talking about the spiritual side. Okay, so deeper understanding is that you are in charge of your own destiny. You are independent spiritually in terms of the direction of your life. All right. Now, the third phrase is this. That's this. Third and fourth. Okay. Well, we're not doing phrase by phrase, but third phrase is with this mother principle of power. All right. Okay. So in this context, a lot of people translate it as this: mother of the country. Okay. I mean, literally, yes. I mean, people would, if they were to translate literally, that's what they would say. It's called the mother of the country. What does that mean? I mean, what Laos is talking about on the mothers of countries now? Okay, well, what it means is this. It's the mother principle, which is the Tao principle of sovereign power. Sovereign power means that you have spiritual control, spiritual power, right? Spirituality. Okay, now, the reason why we interpret this line or this phrase as the mother principle, not the mother country, is because of this. It's similar to this phrase. Remember chapter 52? Okay, chapter 52. What does it say? It said, this is in section 1, all right? This is like the third phrase. Having its mother, we can know her children. Knowing her children, still holding on to the mother. Okay, so now, what does that mean? Right? Okay, it's 36 phrases of chapter 10. Okay, the mother represents the Tao. Okay, so what it means is when you understand the Tao, you understand the world. That's the children, the world. You understand everything because everything comes from the mother. That means you understand everything. In chapter 53 would be the children. Everything would be the children because children comes from the mother, which is the Tao. So everything comes from the Tao. Okay, so that's what it means. All right, so that's why it's called the mother principle of power, of sovereignty or sovereign. So conversely, when you understand the world, understand other people, you will begin to have glimpses of the understanding of Tao itself, because the Tao is the source or mother of everything. All right, so that's what I mean. So that's why it's called the mother principle. Okay, the mother principle. All right. Okay, so that means you know the source. You always go to the source, right? If you understand the source, you understand everything. Okay, that's the idea. All right. Okay. And the last phrase, which is what? One can be everlasting. So with this mother principle of power, one can be everlasting. Okay. So, which means with the mother principle, one can become durable, eternal, everlasting, indefinite. All right. So when you have an understanding of the mother principle of power, that means understanding Tao, you can be everlasting. The Tao within you is durable, is lasting, is infinite, is eternal. All right. So to be lasting is congruent with the Tao because the Tao is changeless, constant, eternal. Conversely, whatever is transient or impermanent is not congruent with Tao or it's not lasting. Okay. So further understanding, the authentic Tao is about real and permanent improvements. The joy and sense that comes from any permanent change are not transit, so are not transient. So that's why when we, you know, get rid of our bad habits, right? Get rid of our, three poisons, ego. Those, if you really or permanently rid them, that means you have attained the authentic Tao or you have reached that level. Okay. So another way of saying is that the essence of Tao is the mother principle, and the virtues are the functions of the mother. So the mother principle represents the essence of the Tao, and its children represents the virtues. Okay, so that's another way of saying this is more specific, right? All right, so higher understanding is when you know the mother principle, that is the Tao essence, you know all the virtues of the children, and you know the world, the functions, okay, which are the function, and then you can be everlasting, transcending all space and time, okay, because you have reached that level, all right, where you reach the level of, you can say, ultimate reality. Okay, you transcend, therefore, space and time, or transcend phenomena. Okay, so at the ruler level, this means serving or deserving of ruling a kingdom. Yeah, okay, that's very superficial. At the personal level, it means spiritual sovereignty, or you have spiritual empowerment or power as a Tao cultivator. So the mother principle is knowing the mother or the essence and knowing its children, the virtues. Okay. This is the Tao principle of sovereign power. Now, externally, what that means is that living properly gives us healthy longevity. Our positive influence on others is also real and lasting. So our legacy can outlive us indeed. Okay, so it's not about physical immortality, but rather it's about what we do, how we live our lives, what we leave behind after our physical selves are gone. That that legacy is what's enduring. Okay, so the key point of what on the personal level, what physical, what sovereignty means is understanding and owning your spiritual power, knowing how powerful you are. Okay, you have your spiritual destiny is in your hands. So being spiritually independent, not beholden to anyone. Okay, because it's still you. No one has power over your spirituality. Okay, so you can be your own master. You do not have to rely on others to tell you what to do because you know the truth deep within. Okay, so, and thirdly is having the wisdom to determine your own direction, not just for your life, but the direction of your own spiritual cultivation. And at some point in the future, both your life and the spiritual directions will become aligned so that the spiritual direction is one and the same as your life direction. All right, so they converge, they are all merged into one. Then, fourthly, is take charge of your life and destiny. It is your power to determine your life to begin with. You have always had that power, which you now can reclaim. This power is your own, it belongs to no one else. All of your positive influences can be everlasting. Okay, so that's what the if you know with if you have this mother principle, then you can be everlasting. That's what it means. That's the personal sovereignty. Okay, the mother principle. All right. Okay, so now let's reach the conclusion. Okay, the synthesis. This is called deep roots and firm foundation, the Tao of longevity and lasting vision. Okay. All right. Basic meaning of the first phrase: deep roots and firm foundation are metaphors for an authentic Tao cultivator who is solid and strong with the basics. What does that mean? Solid and strong with the basics. What are the basics? Daily cultivation, that's learning and practice, and fundamental principles. So we have to know what the fundamental principles of Tao are, not just cultivation. Okay, we have to also know what the principles. A major goal of cultivation, though, is to learn and know the fundamental principles and practices by heart. That's the whole idea of cultivation. All right, or one of the goal. Okay, so that's a major goal. Okay, so additional meaning is that deep roots is also a metaphor for what? Anybody remember? What? For being well prepared, as in having done the work to become well established. Remember just that chapter? Oh man, I just lost my notes. I think it's chapter 42, I believe. Say 42? No, not 42. Sorry. Well, not 42. It's in the 40s. Okay. I think it's in the 40s. Should be in the 40s. Well established. It's the well established chapter. I just don't remember exactly what chapter. Chapter 54. Sorry, chapter 54. Okay, it's chapter 54. I should put that here. We call chapter 50. It just means that doing the work to become well established in the cultivation of Tao. Okay, that's chapter 50. 54 is that which is well established cannot be uprooted. That which is strongly held cannot be taken. All right. Okay. So that's what it means. Okay. So therefore, the descendants will commemorate. So that means you have longevity. Okay. So same idea. All right. Okay. So the chapter 54, deep roots and firm foundation means accumulating serious virtues. Though constantly, how do you get deep roots and firm? You also have to accumulate virtues. All right. Okay. So let's look at the last phrase, which is what? The Tao of longevity and lasting vision. What does that mean? Okay. So does not the Tao longevity does not mean physical immortality. Now some translators misunderstood this and they say, oh yeah, we can have physical immortality. That's where the practice of religious Taoism, we call religious Taoism. Yeah, I guess that's it. Oh yeah, it shouldn't be philosophical. It's religious Taoism, which is they believe that by making specific elixirs or what they call 仙丹, you could, become physically immortal. Well, okay, well, whatever. But it's not, okay, it's not, okay. As it's often translated as, it actually means a long and meaningful life in Tao. That's what it means, okay? So a lot of times you're going to read, other translations, people translate this line as physical immortality, which does not mean that. Lao Tzu is saying, no, it just means a long and meaningful life in the Tao. All right, so that's important to know. As a result, Tao cultivators have what that means is if you have a long and meaningful life in the Tao, or in the cultivation of Tao, then you have a lasting influence on others while also having excellent health. Okay, so all right, it's not okay. That means that the two are not mutually exclusive. All right, so naturally, their positive influences on other people will last long beyond their lives. It is all about the legacy that you leave. This concept is applicable on different levels to individuals, countries, kingdoms, empires, etc. Right? The legacy of an individual, country, etc., etc. Right? Okay. Now, that longevity is really the spiritual immortality. That's what it is. Okay. It's not physical immortality. It's spiritual. It's expressed as lasting vision. So when you combine long life and lasting vision together, means long life is not about physical immortality. Because why? Lasting vision extends beyond the physical lifetime. It is the legacy we leave behind that is immortal. See, so the clue is already in this last phrase. All right. So saying that the Tao longevity and lasting vision. So if you combine the two, longevity, right, which is long life, right? Longevity is long life, right here. Longevity and lasting vision means what? Long life. It's not about physical being, because if you have a lasting vision, that means the vision is going to what? be around after your physical lifetime. That's why they call it lasting vision, right? Makes sense? All right. Okay. So that's what it means. All right. So the clues right there. So deeper understanding is that deep roots and firm foundation is a metaphor for the three non-outflow studies or endeavors, right? That's what it is. Non-outflow also means not to disperse or deplete or release our vitality, energy, and spirit, right? That's the the philosophical Taoism, okay, understanding, okay. But to concentrate or focus, which is to gather back together, or to gather them together, gather them back, to merge them together. So this is similar to the concept of dhyana, okay? That in Buddhism, they call that samadhi, all right? Which is to focus, right? To reach a deep state of meditative focus or tranquility, okay? That deep state of calm. Okay, fine. Okay, so the higher understanding is having a solid foundation of fundamental principles and well-established practice of Tao cultivation is the same as following and applying the three non-outflow studies. All right. So to attain complete non-outflow is to already achieve the Dharma or law of non-birth. That's it's in Chinese is this. All right. So here it is to attain complete non-outflow. All right. Okay. That it just means at least the level of arhathood, at least, or bodhisattva. Okay, and the highest Buddha level. Okay. So where there's no rebirth, there's no birth, and without birth and with no non-birth, there is what? There is neither vanishing nor extinguishing. Okay, okay. So it is the fundamental law or teaching of the Bhutatata, Bhutatata. Okay, that's the Zenru. Okay, it means the Buddha nature. I mean, the Buddha nature essence or the essence, the Tao essence. That is the Dharma of non-birth and the embodiment of nirvana. Right, nirvana means no more rebirth, no more death. Okay, that's what that means. It just means enlightenment. Okay, supreme enlightenment. Well, at least arhathood. Okay, if you're an arhat, you don't have to be reborn. So if there's no birth, then there's no extinguishing, no death, right? Okay, all right. So the implication is this. So the meaning for Tao cultivators is the following. One is we have to have the wisdom to look into the future and think long term. Okay, long term meaning what happens after our physical being no longer exists. Okay, I mean that's the long term. Okay, now to the wisdom to create a lasting example for others to see and what to do. So that's the legacy. Okay, we have to have the wisdom to ask ourselves, what sort of legacy will we leave behind for our loved ones, for our children, for society, etc., right? And then the wisdom to perceive the eternal Tao, the wisdom to perceive, to understand, to recognize, recognize, understand, observe, right? The eternal Tao. That's okay. That's very broad, but also it just means internally, individually, to what? The wisdom to realize that we have this Buddha nature that's eternal, that's infinite. All right, okay, all right. So this sums up the reason for Tao cultivation. Okay, so if we are able to walk this path, if we are able to live in accordance to the Tao, then literally there is immortality in the spiritual sense. So ultimately, the Tao is about living well, not living indefinitely. So summary part one kind of summarizes the whole thing. It's called Progress in the Tao. Okay, progression in the Tao. Okay, so there are 9 stages in this chapter that talks about the progress of the Tao. First one is conserve, right? Which means, yes, on the tangible basic level means, our days and resources are lifetime. But the higher level, it means to be at rest with the Tao, or to be abiding with Tao, or to be at the one, state of oneness with Tao. Second, submit early. All right. The sooner we start walking the Tao path, the better. Okay. So that's very, basic. But more specific or more higher level is to understand, to have the moral discipline. That's the start of Tao cultivation. Yeah. So if people say, "Oh, I cultivated Tao," but you have no more discipline, that's not called cultivating Tao. Okay. All right. Okay. And then thirdly is to accumulate virtues. Once you have moral discipline, then it's easy. Then you really can accumulate virtue. But you have to, it's incremental. It's one step at a time. So there's small, gradual changes over time. But so your growth or your progress is not noticeable to others because it's small, it's gradual, and a lot of times it's internal. Okay, a lot of times it's internal, or actually a good part of it is internal. All right. Okay. So but the gradual accumulation of virtues that manifests from the true nature from the world. That's where the key is that you accumulate virtues. Yes, there's external. Remember, we called it the tangible virtues, right? The karmic, that leads to karmic rewards. But yes, we have to do that too because we are still living in this material world. So you have to, you know, do things that's material connected, right? But the big part is in your internal side, internal virtue. So that internal virtue manifests from the true Buddha nature, right? And then from there, it's from that true Buddha nature. Then you manifest outwardly, you expand outwardly, and then you do the external side, but that's not attached because it comes directly from your Buddha nature. That's when those what we call tangible virtues or the virtue of prosperity will become unlimited, no longer be bound, okay, or be limited. All right, so that's the key. Then fourthly is to overcome all obstacles. Once you have what? Once you have discipline, once you have accumulated virtues, then you can what? You are powerful, spiritually speaking. Okay. So everything will be influenced by all the virtues that you accumulated. Then once you can overcome all types of obstacles or hindrances, then you can remove your limits. All right. You transcend the limitations you had before. Okay. You have the power to take control of yourself, your thoughts, desires, cravings, etc. All right. Okay. Then when you have that, you have spiritual sovereignty, which is the independence and authority at the deepest level, able to determine your own spiritual destiny. And then after that, you can become everlasting, steady and a constant in a world of chaos, being Tao-like, being congruent or at one with Tao. Your influence is lasting and pervasive. Be a beacon of the Tao, like a rock of ages, right? Rock of Gibraltar. Once you can do that, then you have established deep roots. All right. That's the strong foundation for oneness with the Tao and the well-established and strongly held Tao practice in your daily life and helping others establish theirs. Chapter 54. All right. So then lastly, you have achieved the Tao of longevity and lasting vision, which is to attain the state of permanence, which is spiritual longevity and constancy, reaching the state of complete non-outflow, which is what? At least the level of bodhisattvas, okay? Or, we say you can say arhats, but we're bodhisattvas, okay? It's bodhisattvas, okay? All right, so that's the 9 stages, okay? All righty, okay, so that summarizes everything. Now we just go to the conclusion. All righty, okay. All right, so the key point is this. The more you can do in terms of the foundation and roots, the more you can be like the Tao, which lasts indefinitely or eternally, because the Tao is eternal. That's okay. Now, personally, the physical body is transient. A lifetime is finite and limited, but spiritually, it is everlasting. So our spirit, our Buddha nature, our soul, attains the oneness, okay? It is of the Tao. It will manifest again from the Tao. If we live in accordance with the Tao, it is the best possible life that we can live. This means these 3 things. We cultivate your health, so you make the most of your life. Every day of your life is special and full of joy, and create meaning for yourself and everyone around you. So what is your vision for yourself, your place in the world, and the work you would like to do? Okay. This is the reason for Tao cultivation, whereby constantly observation is to know where to abide or rest or stop, being at one with Tao. Okay, is to obey or follow the moral disciplines of the self nature. That's to submit early, which means to collect and gather together our body and mind in order to be able to have moral discipline, where this merging of the vitality, energy, and spirit means not to deplete them by not releasing them outwardly. This is called non-outflow. Okay, so whereby having the moral disciplines, one is able to accumulate serious virtues, which is to emphasize the gradual accumulation of virtuous merits that manifests from the Tao, or our true nature, Buddha nature. And with gradual accumulation of serious virtues, or we can say, virtuous merits, that's what okay. Everything will be influenced by the virtues. Everything will not be in conflict or opposed. Everything will be subdued or vanquished. Everything meaning all the obstacles, okay, or hindrances. So when you master the accumulation of serious virtues, there's nothing you cannot overcome. All phenomenal matters and affairs will be surmounted, where you become an unlimited individual, and the limits of this power of accumulation of virtues is unknown, where you are, okay, in charge of your own destiny and have true spiritual sovereignty, which is the Tao principle of sovereign power. The mother is the essence of Tao, and the virtues are the functions of children of the mother. When you have an understanding of the mother principle power, then you can be everlasting. Okay? All right. This is called deep roots and firm foundation, which is to be well established in the cultivation of Tao, and a metaphor for the three non-outflow studies or endeavors. This is longevity and lasting vision. This is not about physical immortality, but all about lasting influences on others and the legacy we leave behind that is immortal. This is called longevity. Okay, I think this is it. Yeah. So I stop here. This is the end. Uh, if there are things that I did not say correctly, I ask for the Buddha's and Laozi's forgiveness and everyone's guidance. Okay. Thank you.